Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when everything changed. The bitter liquid was still hot in his cup when Lisa Park burst through his office door. Her face was white with fear. "Sir, you need to see this right now," she said. Her hands shook as she held the datapad. Jake set down his coffee and looked at the screen. Numbers filled the display. Big numbers. Ships. Lots of ships. All heading straight for Haven Prime. "How many?" Jake asked. 57 vessels. "Maybe more." "They're huge, sir. Much bigger than anything we have." Jake felt his stomach drop. Haven Prime was a small mining colony at the edge of human space. They had 847 people living here. Most were miners and farmers. Their families, regular people who just want a quiet life. The colony had no military ships, no weapons except mining lasers and some old security rifles. They were sitting ducks. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her readings again. 3 days, maybe less. Jake ran his hand through his gray hair. He had been colony administrator for 5 years. He had handled supply problems, equipment failures, and personality conflicts. But this was different. This was war. "Get me a connection to Earth Command," he said. Lisa nodded and hurried to her communication station. Jake walked to the window of his office. Outside, he could see the main street of Haven Prime. Children played in the dusty road. Their parents worked in the shops and offices. None of them knew that death was coming from the stars. The communication system crackled to life. A stern face appeared on the screen. Admiral Brooks from Earth Command looked tired. "Morrison, I got your message. I'm sorry, but we have no ships in your sector. Sir, we need help. These ships are huge. We can't fight them." Admiral Brooks shook his head. "The nearest fleet is 6 months away. You're on your own." The screen went dark. Jake stared at the blank display. 6 months. They would all be dead in 3 days. The aliens made contact that afternoon. Jake was in the main meeting hall with his senior staff. Ben Carter, the chief engineer, was a big man with oil-stained hands. Amy Rodriguez ran colony security. She was small but tough. Dr. Paul right-handled medical care for the colony. The communication system buzzed. A new voice filled the room. It spoke perfect English with a strange musical accent. "Humans of Haven Prime, I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. You will listen." Jake grabbed the microphone. "This is Administrator Morrison. What do you want?" "Want?" The alien voice seemed amused. "We want nothing from you. This system belongs to us. It has belonged to us for 3,000 years. Our ancestors discovered it long before your species learned to make fire. We've been here for 7 years," Jake said. "We built this colony. These are our homes. Your homes are built on our land. You will leave. You have 72 hours to evacuate your people. After that, we will remove you." The connection ended. The room fell silent. Dr. Wright spoke first. "Can they do that? Just claim our system?" "They have 57 warships," Amy said. "They can do whatever they want." Ben Carter pounded his fist on the table. "This is our home. We worked hard to build it. My kids were born here." Jake looked around the room. These people trusted him to keep them safe. But how could he fight an alien empire? "We need to evacuate," Dr. Wright said. "Get everyone on the transport ships." "Where will we go?" Amy asked. "We don't have enough fuel to reach another system." Jake thought about the transport ships. They were old cargo vessels, slow and uncomfortable. Even if they had enough fuel, the aliens could easily catch them. "There might be another option," Jake said quietly. The others looked at him. "I know someone who might help. Someone who understands how to fight aliens." "Who?" Ben asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. The name brought back bad memories. Stories that made people uncomfortable. But desperate times call for desperate measures. "Marcus Kane," Jake said. Amy's eyes went wide. "The Proxima Devil? He's in prison." "He's also the only human who ever beat an alien invasion force," Jake replied. Dr. Wright shook his head. "The man is dangerous. They locked him up for good reasons." "Dangerous to who?" Jake asked. To us or to them? Jake looked out the window again. The children were still playing. Their parents still worked. None of them knew that alien warships were coming. Set up a secure channel, Jake told Lisa. I need to make a call. The sun was setting over Haven Prime. In 3 days, it might be setting on Graves. The prison ship orbited Jupiter like a metal moon. Inside its steel walls, Marcus Kane sat alone in his cell. The room was small and white. A bed, a toilet, and nothing else. He had lived here for 2 years. Kane was not a big man, but something about him made other prisoners stay away. Maybe it was his eyes. They were cold and gray, like winter storms. Maybe it was the scars on his hands and face. Or maybe it was the stories everyone heard about what he did on Proxima Centauri. The door to his cell opened. Sergeant Tony Blake walked in. He was an old friend from Kane's Marine days. Now, he worked as prison security. Got a message for you, Tony said. He looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then he handed Kane a small datapad. Kane read the message twice. It was from Jake Morrison on Haven Prime. The words were simple but urgent. Alien ships. Innocent people in danger. Need help. How bad is it? Kane asked. Bad, Tony said. 57 alien warships. The colonists have nothing to fight with. Kane set down the datapad. He had heard about Haven Prime. A peaceful mining colony. Families with children. Good people trying to build a life among the stars. What do they want me to do? Kane asked. What you do best, Tony replied. Fight aliens. Kane was quiet for a moment. 2 years ago, he had been Earth's greatest hero. The man who saved Proxima Centauri from invasion. Then everything went wrong. The politicians said he used too much force. They said he was too violent. They locked him away like a dangerous animal. They won't let me out, Kane said. Tony smiled. Maybe they will. Morrison has friends in high places, and Earth Command is embarrassed about abandoning those colonists. Kane stood up and walked to the small window in his cell. Through the thick glass, he could see Jupiter's red storm swirling below. Somewhere out there, innocent people were going to die unless someone helped them. If I do this, Kane said, I do it my way, no rules, no limits. That's what Morrison is counting on, Tony replied. Meanwhile, on Haven Prime, the alien ships had arrived. They appeared in the sky like falling stars. But these stars were massive and made of crystal. They moved with purpose, taking positions around the colony. Jake Morrison watched from his office window. The alien vessels were beautiful in a terrifying way. They looked like giant jewels floating in space. Each one was bigger than the entire colony. Lisa Park ran into his office again. Sir, they're sending down ships. Landing craft. Jake grabbed his communicator. All department heads to the meeting hall. Now! The landing craft touched down in the main square. They were small compared to warships, but still impressive, made of the same crystal material. They gleamed in the afternoon sun. A ramp lowered from the nearest craft. Figures walked out. The colonists who had gathered to watch gasped in surprise. The aliens were tall and thin. Their skin looked like polished stone. They moved with grace, as if they were dancing instead of walking. Their leader wore robes that seemed to be made of light itself. The alien leader looked around the square with obvious disgust. He saw the simple buildings, the dusty streets, the frightened humans watching from doorways. I am Subcommander Chintel, the alien announced. His voice was musical but cold. By order of Commander Veltar, this world now belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. A woman in the crowd called out, This is our home. Chintel turned to look at her. His expression showed no emotion. Your home is built on sacred ground. You are like insects that have made nests in a temple. More aliens spread out through the square. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. Jake could see fear in the faces of his people. Children hid behind their parents. Old people whispered prayers. In the meeting hall, Jake's team had gathered. Ben Carter looked angry. Amy Rodriguez was checking her sidearm, though they all knew it would be useless against alien technology. Dr. Wright was pale with worry. They're not just taking our land, Amy reported. I've been listening to their communications. They want to study us. Study us how? Jake asked. Like lab rats. They think humans are primitive. They want to see how we react to stress and fear. Ben Carter slammed his fist on the table again. We're not animals in a zoo. To them we are, Dr. Wright said quietly. They see us as barely intelligent creatures. Jake thought about the message he had sent to Marcus Kane. Was it getting through? Would Kane even agree to help? And if he did, could one man really make a difference against an entire alien fleet? Outside, Subcommander Chintel was giving orders to his troops. They began setting up equipment in the square. Energy barriers, communication towers, guard posts. The message was clear. The aliens were here to stay. A young boy broke away from his mother and ran up to one of the alien soldiers. The child was maybe 6 years old. He looked up at the tall alien with curiosity instead of fear. Are you a robot? The boy asked. The alien soldier looked down at him. For a moment, something almost like confusion crossed its face. Then Chintel called out an order in the alien language. The soldier pushed the boy away roughly. The child fell and started crying. The boy's mother ran to help him. Other colonists started moving forward, anger replacing fear. Stop, Jake called out as he ran from the meeting hall. Everyone stay calm. But he could see the hatred growing in his people's eyes. The aliens didn't just want their home. They didn't respect them as intelligent beings. They treated humans like pests to be swept away. Jake helped the crying boy to his feet. He looked into the child's scared eyes and made a silent promise. Somehow, some way, he would protect these people, even if it meant making a deal with the most dangerous human in the galaxy. The small courier ship dropped out of hyperspace just as the 72-hour deadline ended. Jake Morrison watched it approach through his office window. The ship was fast and sleek, built for stealth rather than comfort. Tony Blake had kept his word. The prison transfer had gone through official channels with surprising speed. Someone high up in Earth Command wanted Marcus Kane released, even if they wouldn't admit it publicly. The courier ship landed at the small spaceport outside town. Jake walked there alone. He wanted to meet this man himself. The stories about Kane were legend throughout human space. Some called him a hero. Others called him a monster. Most people called him both. The ship's door opened. A man stepped out into the dusty afternoon air. He was average height, with brown hair and gray eyes. He wore simple clothes and carried one small bag. To anyone watching, he looked completely ordinary. But Jake had seen Kane's military records. This ordinary-looking man had killed over 300 alien warriors in hand-to-hand combat. He had held a fortified position alone for 3 days against impossible odds. He had saved 50,000 colonists on Proxima Centauri. He had also been court-martialed for what happened after the fighting stopped. Administrator Morrison, Kane said. His voice was quiet and calm. Just Jake, Morrison replied. Thank you for coming. Kane looked around the spaceport. He could see the alien ships in the sky, their crystal hulls gleaming like deadly jewels. In the distance, smoke rose from the colony where the aliens had begun their occupation. How many civilians? Kane asked. 847, including 96 children. Kane nodded. He had expected families. The aliens always targeted colonies with families first. It was part of their psychological warfare. What kind of aliens are we dealing with? They call themselves Zephyrians. They're tall, thin, look like they're made of stone. They move like dancers, but they're strong. Their technology is way ahead of ours. Weapons. Energy weapons. Some kind of plasma rifles. Personal shields that stop our bullets. Their armor looks like it could stop anything we have. Kane was quiet as they walked toward town. He studied everything. The terrain, the buildings, the defensive positions the aliens had established. His trained eyes missed nothing. They've made a mistake, Kane said finally. What mistake? They landed ground troops. If they just wanted to kill everyone, they would have bombed us from orbit. They want something else. Jake felt a chill. Amy thinks they want to study us. Like lab animals. Kane stopped walking. His gray eyes turned cold. Lab animals? They think we're primitive, barely intelligent. Kane's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered behind his eyes. Jake suddenly understood why other prisoners stayed away from this man. They reached the edge of town. Alien soldiers had set up checkpoints on every street. The Zephyrians stood perfectly still at their posts, their weapons ready. They looked like statues until someone approached. Then they moved with frightening speed and grace. Kane watched the family trying to get to their home. The aliens stopped them, searched their belongings, and spoke to them in harsh tones. The humans kept their eyes down and their voices quiet. They were already learning to be afraid. How many soldiers did they land? Kane asked. About 200. They have more on the ships if they need them. 200, Kane repeated thoughtfully. Against one. One. Kane looked at Jake with those cold gray eyes. You didn't call me here to organize a resistance movement. You called me because you need someone willing to do what needs to be done. That's not a job for committees or heroes. That's a job for one man who doesn't mind getting his hands dirty. They made their way to the colony administration building. It had been Commander Veltar's first target. The alien leader had claimed it as his headquarters, pushing out the human workers like they were insects. Kane studied the building carefully. He noted the guard positions, the entrances, the windows. He memorized patrol routes and timing. Jake realized the man was already planning something. Inside the building, they could hear alien voices speaking in their musical language. Occasionally, human voices answered in frightened tones. The staff who hadn't been thrown out were now working as servants for their new masters. They're confident, Kane observed. Shouldn't they be? They have all the advantages. Kane smiled for the first time since arriving. It was not a pleasant smile. Confidence is a weakness. It makes you predictable. They walked through the town. Kane saw everything. The way the aliens positioned their guards. How they reacted to crowds versus individuals. Which weapons they carried. And how they held them. He noticed that the aliens seemed uncomfortable in the dusty, chaotic environment of a human colony. At the medical center, they found Dr. Wright treating a man who had been beaten by alien guards. The doctor looked up when they entered. You must be Kane, Dr. Wright said. He had heard the stories too. Kane knelt beside the injured man. What happened? He asked questions about his missing daughter. Dr. Wright replied. The aliens don't like questions. Kane's expression darkened. He looked at the man's injuries. Precise, calculated, meant to hurt but not kill. The aliens were sending a message. Where is his daughter? They took her for a biological study, along with 12 other young people. Kane stood up slowly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Jake saw something change in the man's face. The quiet, ordinary-looking person was gone. In his place stood something much more dangerous. Doctor, Kane said quietly, I'm going to need some medical supplies. Nothing fancy, just basics for treating wounds. What kind of wounds? Kane was already heading for the door. The kind the aliens are going to have. Outside, the sun was setting over Haven Prime. The alien guards were changing shifts with mechanical precision. Everything was orderly and controlled, just the way the Zephyrians liked it. Kane watched the guard change in the shadows. He counted soldiers, noted weapons, memorized faces. The aliens moved with confidence, secure in their technological superiority. They had no idea they were being hunted. Jake found Kane an hour later, sitting on the roof of a storage building. The man had found the highest point in the colony and was studying the alien positions like a general planning a battle. What's your plan? Jake asked. Kane didn't look away from his surveillance. They think they're fighting humans. Tomorrow, they're going to discover they're wrong. What do you mean? Kane finally turned to look at Jake. In the gathering darkness, his eyes seemed to glow. They're going to learn what it means to fight a Deathworlder. Kane began his war at 3 a.m. The first alien guard never saw him coming. The Zephyrian was standing at his post near the water treatment plant, perfectly still like a statue. His energy weapon was ready. His armor gleamed in the starlight. He was watching for human resistance, for weapons, for organized attacks. He was not watching for a shadow that moved like smoke. Kane struck from behind. No weapons, no noise. The alien simply collapsed. When the next patrol found him 2 hours later, it looked like equipment failure. The alien's breathing apparatus had malfunctioned. These things happen sometimes with complex technology. The second guard disappeared near the mining depot. His patrol found only his weapon and armor, neatly stacked beside a mining shaft. The shaft was over 1,000 feet deep. Accidents happen around heavy machinery. By dawn, 3 aliens were dead and 2 were missing. Sub-Commander Chintel called an emergency meeting with his officers. Kane watched the meeting from the roof of the communications building. He had Lisa Park's help now. The young woman was frightened but angry. She wanted to hurt the aliens who had taken her friends. "Can you understand what they're saying?" Kane asked. Lisa nodded. She had been studying alien languages since the first contact. They're confused. Chintel thinks there might be dangerous animals on this planet. Kane smiled grimly. He's right. The aliens were arguing. Their musical voices were harsh with stress. They kept using the same word over and over. "What does that word mean?" Kane asked. "Predator," Lisa translated. Kane's smile grew wider. Amy Rodriguez found him that afternoon. The security chief was carrying a backpack full of supplies. Medicine, food, communication equipment. Things a guerrilla fighter would need. "Ben Carter wants to help too," she said. "He knows every tunnel and maintenance shaft in the colony. Steve Walsh is with us. So is Carol Jenkins." Kane looked at the small group of volunteers. Amy was tough and trained. Ben knew the colony systems. Steve was a good mechanic. Carol had military experience. But they were still civilians facing professional soldiers with superior technology. "This isn't going to be like the movies," Kane warned them. "It's going to be dirty and brutal. Some of us probably won't survive." "Those things took my nephew for their studies," Amy said. "I'm not backing down." Kane studied her face. He saw the same cold anger that he felt. Good. He could work with anger. "All right, but we do this my way. No heroes. No unnecessary risks. We're not trying to win battles. We're trying to win a war." That night, Kane taught them the first rule of fighting superior forces. Make the enemy afraid. The aliens had established a routine. Patrols every 2 hours. Guard changes at midnight and dawn. Supply runs to their ships twice daily. Everything was predictable and efficient. Kane showed his team how to disrupt that routine. They started with the water supply. Ben Carter knew exactly where the alien purification systems connected to the colony's water grid. They didn't poison the water, just contaminated it with minerals from the mining operation. The water became foul-tasting, but harmless. The aliens were used to perfect, clean water. Suddenly, their drinking supply tasted like rotting metal. Their officers assumed equipment failure and brought in replacement filters. Those filters failed too. Next came the communications. Steve Walsh was an electronics expert. Under Kane's direction, he introduced subtle glitches into the alien communication network. Messages arrived late or garbled. Patrol reports got lost. Orders were misunderstood. The aliens began to doubt their own technology. But Kane's real genius was psychological. He left messages for the aliens, written in their own language. Dr. Wright had helped translate them using the colony's computer database. The first message appeared painted on a wall near where the first guard had died. "You are being watched." The second message was found near the mining depot. "Your weapons cannot save you." The third message appeared inside the alien headquarters, written on Commander Veltar's own desk. "Leave now, or join your dead." The aliens were baffled. How could primitive humans learn their language so quickly? How were they getting past all the security systems? How did they even know what had happened to the missing guards? Sub-Commander Chintel doubled the patrols. He ordered his soldiers to travel in groups of 3 instead of pairs. He established new checkpoints and communication protocols. None of it mattered. Kane had spent 2 years studying every alien encounter in human history. He knew how they thought, how they fought, how they organized their forces. More importantly, he knew their weaknesses. The Zephyrians were used to fighting other civilized species, beings who followed rules of war, who used conventional tactics. who could be defeated by superior technology and organization. They had never fought an apex predator from a death world. Kane eliminated 2 more guards that night. One looked like an accident with mining equipment. The other simply vanished, leaving behind only his weapon and a message. "We are hunting you." The aliens began requesting reinforcements from their fleet. Commander Veltar was furious. His perfect occupation was falling apart. His soldiers were becoming paranoid and jumpy. Some were refusing patrol duty in certain areas of the colony. "It's just a few human terrorists," he told Subcommander Chintel. "Find them and execute them publicly." But Chintel had been studying the attacks. There was something wrong with the pattern. The strikes were too precise, too well-coordinated. The humans showed knowledge of Zephyrian tactics and weaknesses that should have been impossible. "Sir," Chintel said carefully, "I don't think we're dealing with normal human resistance." "What do you mean?" "The attacks show signs of intelligence, adaptability. They're learning from each encounter and changing their methods. It's almost like they're not fighting a war but hunting prey." Veltar waved dismissively. "Humans are barely intelligent. They're emotional creatures driven by fear and panic. They cannot possibly be organized enough for what you're suggesting." That night, Kane proved him wrong. Working with his team, Kane coordinated simultaneous attacks on 3 different positions. While he eliminated guards at the power station, Amy sabotaged equipment at the spaceport. Ben created a tunnel collapse that trapped the patrol in the mining complex. Carol disabled vehicles at the motor pool. The aliens tried to respond to all 4 emergencies at once. Their communication network, already weakened by earlier sabotage, broke down completely. Orders were confused. Units were sent to the wrong locations. Valuable time was wasted. When the sun rose, 7 more aliens were dead or missing. The survivors were exhausted and demoralized. Kane met with his team in the abandoned maintenance tunnels beneath the colony. They were tired but determined. For the first time since the aliens arrived, they felt like they were fighting back. "How long can we keep this up?" Amy asked. Kane checked his equipment. He had plenty of supplies, thanks to Ben's knowledge of hidden storage areas. More importantly, he had momentum. The aliens were reacting to him instead of controlling the situation. "As long as it takes," Kane replied. "They came here thinking they were conquering sheep. Now they're learning they picked a fight with wolves." Above them, alien patrols moved through the colony with nervous energy. They jumped at shadows, fired at imaginary threats, and looked over their shoulders constantly. The hunters had become the hunted. Commander Veltar had enough of the human resistance. His perfect occupation was becoming a nightmare. 17 of his soldiers were dead or missing. The rest were scared and jumpy. His reputation was being destroyed by a handful of primitive mammals. He decided to send a message. At dawn, alien soldiers surrounded the main square. They herded confused colonists from their homes at gunpoint. Men, women, and children stood in frightened groups while Zephyrian weapons hummed with deadly energy. Jake Morrison was dragged from his office. He saw the terror in his people's faces and knew something terrible was about to happen. Commander Veltar stood on the steps of the administration building. His crystalline features showed no emotion as he addressed the crowd. "You harbor terrorists among you." His voice rang out across the square. "These criminals have murdered Zephyrian soldiers. This will not be tolerated." The crowd murmured nervously. Parents pulled their children closer. "To demonstrate the price of resistance, 10 of you will be executed." Veltar continued. "Choose your terrorists now, or I will choose for you." Silence fell over the square. No one moved. No one spoke. Veltar nodded to his soldiers. They moved through the crowd, selecting victims at random. Nancy Phillips, the colony's teacher. Roy Henderson, who ran the farming cooperative. 8 others. Good people who had never hurt anyone. "No!" Jake shouted. "They're innocent. All humans are guilty of allowing this resistance to exist." Veltar replied coldly. The selected colonists were forced to their knees in the center of the square. Children cried. Adults prayed. The alien soldiers raised their weapons. From the shadows of a nearby building, Marcus Kane watched through his scope. His hands were steady, but his gray eyes burned with cold fury. The aliens were about to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. The energy weapons charged with a high-pitched whine. The kneeling colonists closed their eyes and waited for death. Kane made his choice. The first alien soldier's head simply exploded. Kane's shot came from an improvised sniper rifle that Ben Carter had built from mining equipment. The second alien fell a split second later. Chaos erupted in the square. Colonists screamed and ran for cover. Alien soldiers spun around, searching for the shooter. More shots rang out from different positions as Amy Rodriguez and her team opened fire. In the confusion, the condemned colonists crawled to safety behind overturned market stalls. Kane continued firing from his hidden position, picking off aliens with mechanical precision. But the colonists' rescue came at a price. Kane had revealed himself. The aliens now knew they were fighting an organized resistance with real weapons. Commander Veltar screamed orders in his native language. His remaining soldiers spread out, using advanced tactics to locate and eliminate the human snipers. Kane knew he couldn't win a direct firefight. His weapons were improvised and his ammunition was limited, but he had advantages the aliens didn't understand. He vanished into the colony's underground maintenance tunnels, taking his war into the dark places where the aliens' technology meant nothing. The tunnel system beneath Haven Prime was vast and complex. It had been built to support the mining operation, with shafts and passages that stretched for miles underground. Kane knew every inch of it now, thanks to Ben Carter's detailed maps. The aliens followed him into the tunnels. Their weapons lit up the darkness with deadly energy beams. Their armor protected them from cave-ins and toxic gases. Their sensors could track heat signatures and movement, but they couldn't track a predator who had learned to think like prey. Kane used the mining explosives that Ben had shown him, not to kill the aliens directly, but to collapse tunnels behind them. Groups of soldiers found themselves trapped in dead-end passages, cut off from their support and communications. He reprogrammed the mining drones, turning automated equipment into weapons. The aliens watched in horror as machines they thought were harmless began hunting them through the tunnels. Most importantly, Kane exploited the aliens' greatest weakness, their dependence on technology. The Zephyrians' environmental suits were marvels of engineering. They filtered air, regulated temperature, and provided protection from hostile environments. But they weren't designed for Earth bacteria. Kane introduced contaminated water into the tunnel systems, microscopic organisms that were harmless to humans but deadly to alien physiology. The Zephyrians' filters couldn't screen out biological agents they had never encountered. One by one, alien soldiers began falling sick. Their perfect technology was failing them in the most basic way possible. Above ground, Subcommander Chintel was trying to maintain order. His forces were being systematically destroyed by an enemy they couldn't see or understand. "Sir," he reported to Commander Veltar, "we've lost contact with 2 entire squads in the tunnel system. The humans seem to be using the underground network against us." "Seal the tunnels," Veltar ordered. "Pump and poison gas. Flood them with plasma fire. Kill everything down there. Sir, if we do that, we might collapse the entire colony." "Good. I want these humans to pay for their defiance." But Kane was already one step ahead. Working with Lisa Park, he had tapped into the aliens' communication network. He heard their plans before they could execute them. When the aliens tried to seal the tunnels, they found that Kane had already booby-trapped the entrances. Explosive charges brought down key support structures, creating new passages while blocking old ones. When they tried to flood the tunnels with gas, the colony's ventilation system turned against them. Kane had reprogrammed the air recycling units to draw the gas into the alien headquarters instead. Every move the aliens made was countered. Every advantage they thought they had was turned into a weakness. Amy Rodriguez coordinated intelligence gathering, while her team eliminated stragglers on the surface. Carol Jenkins used her military training to set up ambush positions. Steve Walsh kept their improvised weapons working, but it was Kane who did the real damage. Moving through the tunnels like a ghost, he hunted the alien soldiers with methodical precision. The Zephyrians had technology. They had superior weapons and armor. They had training and discipline. Kane had something they didn't understand. the instinct of an apex predator from a world where everything was trying to kill him. By the end of the day, Commander Veltar had lost over half his ground forces. The survivors were reporting impossible things. Humans who could see in the dark, machines that turned against their operators, an enemy who seemed to be everywhere at once. Request immediate reinforcements from the fleet. Veltar told his communication officer, full combat deployment. Sir, the fleet commanders are asking for a status report. They want to know how a primitive species is causing such casualties. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. How could he explain that his perfect invasion was being destroyed by creatures his people considered barely intelligent? Tell them, he said finally, that we may have underestimated the humans. Deep in the tunnels, Kane cleaned his weapons and planned his next move. The aliens had reinforcements coming, but that might actually work in his favor. More soldiers meant more targets. More importantly, it meant the aliens were scared enough to call for help. Fear was a weapon Kane understood very well, and he was just getting started. Commander Veltar stood in his command center, staring at reports that made no sense. In 3 days, he had lost 60% of his ground forces. His remaining soldiers were refusing to enter certain areas of the colony. Some were even requesting transfers back to the fleet. This was supposed to be a simple occupation. Primitive humans with basic technology. Instead, his forces were being systematically destroyed by an enemy they couldn't even see. Sir, Subcommander Chintel approached carefully. I have disturbing news from the tunnel systems. More casualties? Worse. We found Sergeant Kovacs alive, but he's changed. He keeps talking about shadows that move like living things. He says the humans have turned the very ground against us. Veltar slammed his fist on the control panel. These are trained Zephyrian soldiers. They don't break from fear. Sir, with respect, they've never faced anything like this before. Neither have we. Through the windows of the command center, Veltar could see his remaining troops. They moved in tight groups, weapons ready, scanning every shadow. These were the same soldiers who had conquered 12 worlds for the Empire. Now they jumped at every sound. Contact the fleet, Veltar ordered. Tell them to prepare orbital bombardment. Chintel's crystalline features showed shock. Sir, that will destroy the entire colony. The research value. There is no research value for all dead. These humans are more dangerous than our intelligence indicated. We'll glass the surface and study the remains. What about our ground forces still in the tunnels? Veltar was quiet for a moment. Those soldiers were good warriors who had served the Empire faithfully. But the situation had gone beyond normal casualties. Acceptable losses, he said finally. Begin evacuation of essential personnel only. Deep underground, Kane heard every word to the communication equipment Lisa Park had helped him steal. The aliens were planning to bomb the colony from space. He had perhaps 6 hours before the ships above started shooting. Kane gathered his team in the deepest part of the tunnel system. Ben Carter had led them to a mining chamber 3,000 feet below ground. The thick rock would protect them from orbital bombardment, but only if Kane's plan worked. They're going to bomb us, Kane told the group. The entire surface will be destroyed. Amy Rodriguez checked her weapon. So we hide down here until they leave? No. If they bomb the colony, they'll assume we're all dead. They'll call it a victory and leave. Then they'll tell other alien species that humans can be defeated by orbital bombardment. Steve Walsh understood first. You want them to think their ground troops won. Kane nodded. More than that, I want them to think something worse happened down here. Something that made bombing the only option. Kane's plan was insane and brilliant at the same time. Working with Ben Carter, he had spent the last 2 days preparing the colony's industrial systems for one massive deception. They had built dozens of fake heat signatures throughout the settlement, using mining equipment and thermal generators. The alien sensors would detect what looked like a normal population going about their daily lives. More importantly, Kane had captured Subcommander Chintel alive. The alien officer was imprisoned in a storage chamber, guarded by Carol Jenkins. Kane had kept him alive for this moment. Now, he needed Chintel to send one final message to the fleet. Kane entered the chamber where the alien was being held. Chintel was bound but unharmed. His crystalline eyes showed fear and confusion. "You're going to help me save your life," Kane said simply. "I will tell you nothing, human savage." Kane sat down across from the alien. "I don't need information. I need you to send a message to your fleet." "Never." Kane pulled out a small device that Ben Carter had built. It looked like a standard Zephyrian communicator, but had been modified to broadcast on all alien frequencies. "Your commander has ordered orbital bombardment," Kane said. "In a few hours, your own ships are going to kill you along with everyone else on this planet." Chintel's expression changed. "That's impossible. Commander Veltar would never abandon ground forces. He just did. Unless you warn your fleet about what's really happening down here." Kane activated a recording device. On the screen, Chintel could see footage that Kane's team had carefully staged. It showed human colonists using captured alien weapons and equipment, mining drones that had been painted to look like alien technology. Even a few colonists wearing modified alien armor. "What is this?" Chintel whispered. "This is what your fleet needs to see," Kane replied. "Evidence that the humans have captured and reverse-engineered Zephyrian technology. Evidence that we're not just defending ourselves anymore. We're adapting, learning, becoming dangerous." The footage was convincing because it contained just enough truth to be believable. Humans were using captured alien equipment, though not nearly as effectively as the recording suggested. "You're asking me to lie to my own fleet." Kane leaned forward. "I'm asking you to tell them the truth. That you underestimated humans. That we're more dangerous than you thought. That this world should be avoided by all Zephyrian forces." Kane played more footage. This time it showed the tunnels where so many alien soldiers had disappeared. But the lighting and camera angles made it look like the humans had built a vast underground fortress equipped with alien technology. "If you don't send this message," Kane continued, "your fleet will bomb this planet thinking they won a victory. They'll tell other alien species that humans are easy to defeat. More aliens will come to human worlds." Kane's voice became deadly serious. "But if you send this message, if you tell them what really happened here, they'll mark human space as dangerous. They'll leave us alone." Chintel stared at the footage. As a military officer, he could see that something was wrong with the images. The humans were using alien equipment, but not expertly. Their tactics were crude compared to proper Zephyrian doctrine. But he could also see the bodies of his fellow soldiers. He had witnessed the systematic destruction of what should have been an overwhelming force. Whether the humans were as advanced as the footage suggested or not, they were certainly dangerous. "What guarantee do I have that you'll let me live if I do this?" Kane smiled grimly. "None. But I guarantee you'll die if you don't. Your own fleet will kill you in about 4 hours." Chintel thought about his options. He could refuse and die in the bombardment. He could cooperate and maybe live. But there was a third consideration that Kane had counted on. If the Zephyrian fleet retreated after suffering such heavy casualties, it would be a humiliation for the Empire. But if they retreated because humans had somehow acquired and mastered Zephyrian technology, that would be a strategic withdrawal in the face of an unprecedented threat. Chintel's career might survive the second option. It definitely wouldn't survive the first. "What exactly do you want me to say?" Kane handed him the modified communicator. "Tell them the truth, Subcommander. Tell them that humanity is more dangerous than anyone imagined." The message from Subcommander Chintel arrived just as the Zephyrian fleet was preparing to fire. His voice crackled through the communication system, urgent and desperate. "Fleet Command, this is Chintel. Cancel bombardment immediately. Repeat, cancel bombardment. The situation has changed." On the bridge of the lead ship, Commander Veltar grabbed the communicator. "Chintel, where have you been? We thought you were dead." "Sir, I've been captured by the humans. But that's not important now. You need to see what they've done." The data transmission began. Footage of humans using Zephyrian weapons and technology. Images of mining equipment that looked like alien machinery. Recordings of colonists speaking in broken Zephyrian language, as if they had learned it by studying captured equipment. The fleet's intelligence officers studied the transmission with growing alarm. If the humans had somehow reverse-engineered Zephyrian technology in just a few days, it represented a threat unlike anything they had ever encountered. Sir, the fleet science officer reported, if this data is accurate, these humans have adaptive capabilities far beyond our estimates. They've not only captured our equipment, but learned to use it. In 3 days? Veltar couldn't believe it. The footage suggests they've been studying our technology since we arrived, possibly longer. This might have been a trap from the beginning. Veltar studied the images with horror. The humans looked primitive, but they were using Zephyrian energy weapons like they had trained with them for years. Their modified mining equipment was being used in ways that showed understanding of advanced alien engineering principles. Sir, another officer called out, we're receiving additional data from the planet's surface. The humans appear to have established a significant underground complex. Our ground forces may have walked into a prepared defensive position. More footage appeared on the screens. The mining tunnels looked like a vast military installation. Human fighters moved through them with confidence, using alien equipment and tactics. It was all fake, of course. Kane had spent hours staging each scene, using camera angles and lighting to make simple mining tunnels look like military bunkers. The colonists were terrified civilians holding captured weapons they barely understood. But the Zephyrians saw what they expected to see, evidence of human intelligence and adaptability. Fleet Command. Chintel's voice continued. These humans are not what we thought. They learn faster than any species we've encountered. They've turned our own technology against us. And, sir, they've learned our language perfectly. They've been listening to our communications from the beginning. That last statement sent chills through the Zephyrian command staff. If the humans could understand their language and intercept their communications, every tactical advantage the fleet possessed was compromised. Chintel, Veltar said carefully, are you speaking under duress? Are the humans forcing you to say this? Sir, I'm telling you what I've observed. These humans are not primitive mammals. They're apex predators from a death world, and we walked into their hunting ground. Kane stood behind Chintel as the alien spoke, listening to every word. The sub-commander was doing exactly what Kane had hoped. He was telling the truth about human capabilities while allowing the Zephyrians to draw their own conclusions about the fake evidence. Sir, Chintel continued, recommend immediate withdrawal from this system. Mark it as a prohibited zone. These humans are too dangerous to engage without significant reinforcements and new tactics. The bridge of the Zephyrian flagship fell silent. They had come to this system expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had discovered a species that could adapt and learn faster than their military doctrine could handle. Sir, the science officer spoke quietly. If these humans can reverse engineer our technology this quickly, what happens when they start building their own ships? What happens when they come looking for us? Commander Veltar made the hardest decision of his military career. All ships, prepare for immediate departure. Send a priority message to Empire Command. This system is to be classified as a prohibited zone pending further study. Sir, what about our ground forces? Veltar looked at the footage one more time. His soldiers had been systematically hunted and eliminated by creatures they had considered barely intelligent. If any of them were still alive, they were probably prisoners being studied by human scientists. Mark them as casualties of war, he said finally. We cannot risk exposing the fleet to these humans. The Zephyrian ships began moving away from Haven Prime. Within hours, they had jumped to hyperspace, leaving the system as quickly as they had arrived. On the planet below, Kane watched the alien ships disappear through the scope of his rifle. Jake Morrison and the other colonists emerged from the deep tunnels. Blinking in the sunlight, they thought they would never see again. They're really gone? Amy Rodriguez asked. Kane nodded. And they're not coming back. Neither is anyone else, if Chintel keeps his word. The alien sub-commander sat in the storage chamber, staring at his hands. He had just convinced his own fleet to retreat from a group of terrified colonists and mining equipment, but he had also seen what happened to elite Zephyrian soldiers in these tunnels. He had seen the systematic, ruthless efficiency with which this one human had destroyed an entire occupation force. What happens to me now? Chintel asked. Kane considered the question. That depends on you. You can stay here as our prisoner, or you can go back to your people and make sure they understand the message. What message? Kane's gray eyes were cold as winter storms. That humanity doesn't surrender. We don't run, and we don't forgive. Your people came to take what was ours. Now they know the price of that mistake. Kane left the chamber and walked to the surface. The colony was damaged but intact. Families were reunited. Children played in the streets again. The nightmare was over. Jake Morrison found him standing at the edge of town, looking up at the stars. "Stay," Jake said. "We could use someone like you as security chief. Build defenses. Train the colonists." Kane shook his head. "I'm not a teacher. I'm not a builder. I'm a weapon that you point at your enemies." "Then stay and be our weapon." Kane was quiet for a moment. There are other colonies out there. Other places where humans are in danger. This won't be the last time aliens think they can take what's ours. A small ship landed at the spaceport. The same courier vessel that had brought Kane to Haven Prime. Tony Blake stepped out, grinning broadly. "Heard you had some excitement here," Tony said. "How did the news travel so fast?" "Earth Command has been monitoring alien communications. They heard the Zephyrian fleet's reports. Something about humans being too dangerous to fight." Tony's grin widened. "The aliens are calling the system a death world preserve and telling everyone to stay away." Kane picked up a small bag. Everything he owned fit inside it. Good. Maybe other aliens will get the message. Where to next? Kane looked up at the stars again. Somewhere out there, other alien species were probably planning their own invasions of human space. They were studying human weaknesses, human technology, human tactics. They weren't studying human psychology. They weren't studying what happened when you cornered an apex predator from a world where everything was trying to kill it. "Wherever I'm needed," Kane said. As the courier ship lifted off, Jake Morrison watched it disappear into the night sky. The colonists of Haven Prime would tell stories about Marcus Kane for generations. The man who fought an entire alien army and won. The Deathworlder who reminded the galaxy why humans were not to be underestimated. But Kane's real victory wasn't the battle he had won. It was the war he had prevented. The Zephyrian report reached Empire Command within days. The data was studied, analyzed, and distributed to allied species throughout the galaxy. The conclusion was unanimous. Humans were far more dangerous than anyone had realized. The small species from the third planet of an unremarkable star system was reclassified as a Class A danger species. Human space was marked as a prohibited zone. Other alien races were warned to avoid contact until better strategies could be developed. Commander Veltar's career was quietly ended. His official report stated that Haven Prime had been defended by unknown indigenous predatory life forms utilizing capture technology. The truth about human capabilities was deemed too sensitive for general distribution. On distant worlds, other alien species planning invasions of human colonies quietly canceled their operations. The cost of fighting Deathworlders was simply too high. And in the deep space between stars, Marcus Kane traveled toward his next mission. Somewhere, other humans needed defending. Other aliens needed to learn the lesson of Haven Prime. They had thought the galaxy was theirs to take. They had thought humans were weak, primitive, easy to conquer. They had thought wrong. The Deathworlders were awake now, and they were coming to take back what was always theirs, the right to exist in peace among the stars, or the right to make war on anyone who threatened that peace. The galaxy would never be the same.